Welcome to SO 302, Study Session 4, The Igbo of Nigeria. Introduction. The Igbo is one of the major ethnic groups in the eastern part of Nigeria. It is indeed the third largest ethnic group in Nigeria. As a result, the ethnic group deserves to be focused. As doing this, the study session will start with providing the historical background of the Igbos by examining their history during the pre-colonial period and modern Nigeria. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Describe the Igbo people. 2. Describe the historical origin of the Igbos. 3. Describe the culture of the Igbo people. The Igbos. The Igbo, sometimes referred to as Igbo, are an ethnic group in West Africa. Most Igbo people live in southeastern Nigeria, where they are one of the largest ethnic groups. Further populations live in other African countries, such as Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, as well as in nations out of Africa due to migration and to the effect of the Atlantic slave trade. The exact numbers out of Africa are unknown, but today many African Americans and Afro-Caribbean are of Igbo descent. The Igbo in Nigeria are found in Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu, Imo, Delta, as well as some parts of Bayelsa and Rivers State. The Igbo language is predominant throughout these areas, although English is also spoken. Prominent towns and cities in Igbo land include Aba, Owerri, Enugu, Onitsha, Abakaliki, Afikpo, Agbo, Holu, Okigwe, Umuahia, and Asaba, and Igwe, Ocha, among others. There is a significant number of Igbo people found in other parts of Nigeria, in such places as the cities of Jos and Lagos. Origin and history of the Igbos. According to several sources, the Igbo people evolved over a long period from 4000 BC to 500 AD in Igbo land through waves of migrations. There is evidence that the ancestors of the Igbo people and most of their neighbors were the Proto-Kwa group. This ancient group came from the African Great Lakes and mountains of the Moon of East and Central Africa and settled at the old Sahara grassland. It was the desertification of the Sahara that forced some of the Kwa people to migrate further down to the north of the Niger-Benue confluence and founded Nok. Elements of the Kwa people migrated south of the Niger-Benue confluence and later became the Igala, Idoma, Yoruba, Igbo, and possibly the Tiv people. The Kwa people's first area of settlement in Igbo land was the Nsukka, Afikpo, Akwa, Olu upland over a 5,000-year period. Elements from the Olu area migrated south, east, and northeast, while elements from the Oka area migrated westward across the Niger River and became the Igbo subgroup known now as Anioma. The Igbo share linguistic ties with the Bini, Igala, Yoruba, and Idoma peoples. There is also an alternative view of origin of the people. According to this view, the Nri Igbo believe that Igbo are one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, although the Igbo people have not been officially acknowledged by Israel or the Jewish community. Nri Nwealana has said that the Igbo are descendants of Jewish Egyptians who had fled Egypt to come to their present settlement, with their leader being the Nri kingdom's progenitor, Eri. The city of Nri is considered to be the foundation of Igbo culture. Nri and Aguleri, where the Igbo creation myth originates, are in the territory of the Omeori clan, who trace their lineages back to the patriarchal king figure Eri. Eri's origins are unclear, though he has been described as a sky being sent by Chukwu, that is God. He has been characterized as having 5 given societal order to the people of Anambra. Archaeological evidence suggests that Nri hegemony in Igbo land may go back as far as the 9th century, and royal burials have been unearthed dating to at least the 10th century. Eri, the godlike founder of Nri, is believed to have settled in the region around 948, with other related Igbo cultures following after in the 13th century. The first Eze Nri, Ifikweani, followed directly after him. According to Igbo oral tradition, his reign started in 1043. At least one historian puts Ifikweani's reign much later, around 1225 AD. Kingdom of Nri was a religio politi, a sort of theocratic state that developed in the central heartland of the Igbo region. The Nri had a taboo symbolic code with 6 types. These included human, animal, object, temporal, behavioral, speech, and place taboos. The rules regarding these taboos were used to educate and govern Nri's subjects. This meant that while certain Igbo may have lived under different formal administration, all followers of the Igbo religion are to abide by the rules of the faith and obey its representative on earth, the Eze Nri. Politically, the Igbo are a fragmented group. There are various subgroups which are set according to clan, lineage, village affiliation, and dialect. There was no centralized chieftaincy, hereditary aristocracy, or kingship customs as can be found among some of their neighbors. An exception to these was the kingdom of Nri, the kingdom of Arochukwu, and the kingdom of Onitsha. Traditionally, the responsibility of leadership is left to the village elders, titled men, and men who have established themselves in the community. This political system had changed significantly as a result of colonialism under the British during the late 19th century and one half of the 28th century. Kings, which are known as Eze, had been introduced to most local communities by Frederick Lugard as Waranchi. Traditional Igbo political organization was based on quasi-democratic republican system of government. In tight-knit communities, this system guaranteed its citizens equality as opposed to a feudalist system with a king ruling over subjects. This government system was witnessed by the Portuguese, who first arrived and met with the Igbo people in the 15th century. With the exception of a few notable Igbo towns, such as Onitsha, which had kings called Obi, and places like Nri Kingdom and Arochukwu, which had priest kings such as Eze Nri, Igbo communities and area governments were overwhelmingly ruled solely by a Republican Consultative Assembly of the common people. Communities were usually governed and administered by a council of elders, and the group's leaders were determined by who was the eldest. Although the title holders were respected because of their accomplishment and capacities, they were never revered as kings, but often performed special functions given to them by such assemblies. This way of governing was immensely different from most other communities of Western Africa and only shared by the Ewe of Ghana. Igbo secret societies, namely the Okonko fraternity, have a ceremonial script called Nsibidi. The Igbo have an indigenous ancient calendar in which a week has 4 days, a month consisted of 7 weeks, and 13 months made a year. In the last month, an extra day was added. This calendar is still in use in villages and towns to determine the next market day. The Igbo people have a form of mathematics called Kipisi and Okwe, used for counting, measurement, and a form of an ancient strategic Igbo game called Okeu. The Igbo created a banking system for saving and loans called Isusu, which is still in use today. They settled matters of law via mediators. The Igbo produced brosons from as early as the 9th century, some of which have been found at the town of Igbo Ukwu in Anambra State. Culture of the people. Igbo culture includes the various customs and practices and traditions of the Igbo people. It comprises archaic practices as well as new concepts added into the Igbo culture, either through evolution or outside influences. These customs and traditions include the Igbo people's visual art, music, and dance forms, as well as their attire, cuisines, and language dialects. Because of their various subgroups and the variety of their culture, it's further heightened. Language and music. The native language of the Igbo people include various different dialects and Igboid languages. These dialects are spoken by Igbo subgroups such as the Ikwere subgroup, who speak the Ikwere dialect. Today, the majority of Igbo speak the English language as a result of British colonialism. In rural areas, Igbo are mostly farmers, and their most important crop is the yam. Celebrations are put on every year to celebrate the harvesting of the yam. There are several theories regarding the etymology of the word Igbo. It is presumed that the word has Sudanic origin, derived from the verb bo. Theorists have suggested that the word may originate from the neighboring Igala, coming from the word Onigbo, a word for slave. But the meaning and origin of the word is still unknown. Igbo has been spelled Igbo until 20th century by British colonialists. Igbo can still be found being used to refer to the Igbo. Officially, Igbo is the correct spelling and has been used in many different publications, such as in the novel Things Fall Apart. The word now has 3 uses to describe indigenous Igbo territory, domestic speakers of the language, and the language spoken by them. The Igbo people have a unique musical style into which they incorporate various percussion instruments. The udu, which is essentially designed from a clay jug, and ekwe, which is formed from hollowed log, and the ogene, a handbell designed from forged iron. Other instruments include okwe, a wind instrument similar to the flute, igba, and ichaka. Another popular musical form among the Igbo is Ilai, which is a fusion of jazz and the traditional music and widely popular in West Africa. Masking is one of the most common art styles in Igbo land. and it is linked strongly with Igbo traditional music. A mask can be made of wood or fabrics, along with other materials including iron and vegetation. Masks have a variety of uses, mainly in social satires, religious rituals, secret societies, initiation, and public festivals, which now include Christmas time celebration. The Ekpe Society, introduced from the Cross River area, uses contrasting masks to represent the beautiful and gentle maiden spirit and the elephant spirit with its ugliness and aggression. Best known are the Agbogbo Moor mask of the northern Igbo, which represent the spirit of diseased maidens and their mothers, with masks symbolizing beauty. Other impressive masks include Northern Igbo Ijele mask at 12 feet high. Ijele mask consists of platform 6 feet in diameter, supporting figures made of colored cloth and representing everyday scenes with objects such as leopards. Ijele masks are used for honoring the dead to ensure the continuity and well-being of the community, and are only seen on rare occasions such as the death of a prominent figure in the community. There are many Igbo dance styles, but perhaps Igbo dance is best known for its Atilogu dance troupes. These troupes performances include acrobatic stunts such as high kicks and cartwheels. Each rhythm from the traditional music instrument indicates a move to the dancer in male and female dance teams. Visual art and architecture. Igbo art is any body of visual art originating from the people of the Igbo. Igbo art is generally known for various styles of masquerade, mask, and outfit symbolizing people, animals, or abstract concepts. Igbo art is known for its bronze casting found in the town of Ugbo Uku from the 9th century, the earliest sculptures discovered in Igbo land. Here, the grave of a well-established man of distinction and a ritual store dating from 19th century AD contained both chased copper objects and elaborate casting of leaded bronze. Some popular Igbo art styles include Uli designs. The majority of Igbo carving are masked, although the functions of these varies from one community to the other. The Igbo art is also famous for Mbari architecture. It is near impossible to describe a general Igbo art style because the Igbo are heavily fragmented. This has added to the development of a great variety of arts and cultural practices. Examples of Igbo architecture are the Mbari houses of the Owerri Igbo, which are large open-sided shelters, square in plan. They house many life-size painted figures. Other sculptures are of official craftsmen, foreigners, animals, legendary creatures, and ancestors. Mbari houses take years to build. Because the process of building is regarded as a sacred art, they are left to decay, new ones being constructed rather than old ones maintained. Houses were commonly made of mud and thatched roofs with bare earth floors or with carved design doors. Some houses had elaborate designs both in the interior and exterior. These designs could include only art designed by Igbo women. Religion and rites of passage. Today, the majority of Igbo are Christians, with Roman Catholicism being the dominant religion of profession any half of the people. There are also a small population of Igbo Jews. The traditional ancient Igbo religion is known as Odiarani. In Igbo mythology, which is part of their ancient religion, the supreme god is called Chukwu. Chukwu created the world and everything in it and is associated with all things on it. Chukwu is also a solar deity. To the ancient Igbo, the cosmos was divided into 4 complex parts. Creation, known as Okike, supernatural forces of deities called Alusi, Mmụọ, which are spirits, and Ula, the world. Chukwu is the supreme deity in Odianani, as he is the creator of their pantheon, and the Igbo people believe that all things come from him and that everything on earth, heaven, and the rest of the spiritual world is under his control. Linguistic studies of Igbo language suggest the name Chukwu is a portmanteau of the Igbo word Chi and Uku. Alusi, also known as Arusi or Arushi, are major deities that are worshipped and served in Odianani. There is a list of many different Aluri and each has its own purpose. When there is no longer need for an individual's deity, it is discarded. The Igbo also believe in reincarnation. People are believed to reincarnate into their former families when they were alive. Before a relative dies, it is said that the dying relative sometimes gives clue as to which family he or she will reincarnate into. Once a child is born, he or she is believed to also give sign of who they reincarnate as. This can be due to behaviors, physical traits, and things that the child says. A diviner can also help in detecting who the child has reincarnated from. It is seen as an insult if a male is known to have reincarnated as a female. Children are not allowed to call elders by their names without using an honorific. Children also require to greet elders when seeing them off for the first time in the day as a sign of respect and good upbringing. Children usually add the Igbo honorifics Mazi or D before the child's name when addressing them. Burials. After a death, the body of a prominent member of the society is placed on a stool in a sitting posture and is clothed in the deceased's finest garments. Friends and relatives of the deceased visit and pay their last respect before the body is buried. Burial usually follows within 24 hours of death. The head or home is usually buried beneath the floor of his house. Different types of death warrant different types of burials. This is also affected by an individual's age, gender, and status in the society. For example, children are buried in hiding and out of sight. Their burials usually take place in the early morning and late in the night. A simple, untitled man is buried in front of his house, and a simple mother is buried in her place of origin, in a garden or a farm area that belonged to her father. Presently, a majority of Igbo bury their dead in the Western way, although it is not uncommon for burials to be practiced in the traditional Igbo ways. Marriage. The process of marrying usually involves asking the young woman's consent, introducing the woman to the families of the man, and the same for the man to the woman's family, testing the bride's character, checking the woman's family background, and paying the bride price. Sometimes marriage may have been arranged from birth through the negotiation of two families involved. In the past, many Igbo men practice polygyny. Polygynous home is made up of a man and his wife and all their children. Men sometimes marry multiple wives for economic reasons, so as to have more people in the farm, including children to help on farms. Christian marriage and civil marriage have changed the Igbo family since the colonization. Igbo people now tend to enter monogamous courtships and create nuclear families, mainly because of Western influence. Clothing. Traditionally, the attire of the Igbo people generally consists of little clothing, as the purpose of clothing originally was to conceal private parts. Although elders were fully clothed, children were usually nude from birth till their adolescence. But sometimes ornaments such as beads were worn around the waist for spiritual reasons. Uli body art was used to decorate both men and women in the form of lines forming patterns and shapes on the body. Women traditionally carry their babies on their backs with a strip of clothing binding the two with a knot at her chest, a practice used by many ethnic groups across Africa. This method has been modernized in the form of the child carrier. In most cases, Igbo women did not cover their breast areas. Maidens usually wore a short wrapper with head around their waist and other ornaments such as necklaces and beads. Both men and women wore wrappers. Men will wear loin clothes that wrapped around their waist and between their legs to be fastened at their back. The type of clothing appropriate for the intense heat as well as jobs such as farming. In the same era as the rise of colonial force in Africa, the way the Igbo dressed also changed. These changes made the Igbo adopt westernized clothing such as shirts and trousers. Clothing worn before colonialism became traditional, and in the same era, the rise of colonial forces in Nigeria, the way the Igbo dress also changed. These changes made the Igbo adopt westernized clothing such as shirts and trousers, looking worn before colonialism, because traditional and worn on special occasions. Although the Igbo wore them, the traditional clothing itself became westernized, and the introduction of various types of Western clothing, including shoes, hats, and trousers. Modern Igbo traditional attire for men is generally made up of Iswagu top, which resembles the Danshiki worn by other African groups. Isiagu is usually patterned with lion's heads embroidered over the clothing and can be a plain color. It is worn with trousers and can be worn with either a traditional title holder hat or with traditional Igbo stripped men's hat. For women, a puffed sleeve blouse along with 2 wrappers and a head tie are worn. Cuisines. The yam is very important to the Igbo people as it is their staple food. There are celebrations such as New Yam Festival, which are held for the harvesting of the yam. During the festival, yam is eaten throughout the communities as celebration. Yam tubers are also shown off by individuals as a sign of success and wealth. Rice has replaced yam for ceremonial occasions. Other foods include cassava, gari, maize, and plantain. Soups or stews are included in a typical meal prepared with a vegetable, such as okra, of which the word derives from the Igbo language okuru, to which pieces of fish, chicken, beef, or goat meat are added. Jollof rice, which has its origin in Sierra Leone, is popular throughout Nigeria. Palm wine is a popular alcoholic beverage among the Igbo. Study session summary. In this study session, we discuss about the Igbo people. We noted that the Igbo are one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria, found in the eastern part of Nigeria. In discussing the Igbo, we started by providing the historical background. We discussed the culture of the Igbo as well as their political system. Aspects of their cultural practices discussed were language and music, religion and rites of passage, marriage, clothing, and cuisine. This is the end of study session 4. Thanks for listening.